believe it is. So we got a grant for doing this. He's doing an art series.
I'm not worried about this.
My daughter was listening to the music the other day. After the article came out.
You actually listen to the song, the record, is that? It is pretty good. I listen to it, it's upbeat. It kind of makes you like cooking in the kitchen or something like.
Yeah, our baby's really into it.
All right. Good afternoon. So we've got 3 presentations this session, a little shorter than this morning. I see we have guests in the house, clients in the house. Welcome. We have 3 going. We have Sustainable going first, Embrace, and then AI Auditors will wrap up the session. And Bruce, you keep an eye on track for me for time. We have 5 minutes to Q&A. So whenever you're ready.
We'll just get started. Hi guys, we're Sustain Dive Team, and this is our team logo and our poster and half sheets. So about our team, and I am Sharon. I am the head producer, UX designer, and 3D artist. And Keishan is our assistant producer and 3D artist. And Nancy is our UI UX designer and 2D artist. And Evans is our programmer and game designer. And Christine is our lead programmer. And Weilin is our programmer and game designer. So our instructors are John and Scott. And our client, Alex, she is the director of sustainability initiatives at Carnegie Mellon University. About her needs for our project, so the first need is she wants us to make a fun game, which means she wants us to make a joyful digital experience game. And the second one is enlightening, which means she wants us to make a game and enlightening people, especially college students, the concept of sustainable development and its related goals. And the last need is relationship, which means she wants us to let the audience realize how things in real life and in the ordinary jobs are related to sustainable development. So this is our demo video, and the video is just to give you a basic understanding of the mechanics of the game, and we will introduce the gameplay in more detail in the following slides.
You are the new layer of Shapetopia. As you can see from the top left of the screen, our city has a lot of problems from the perspective of the environment, life expectancy, social stability, and economic prosperity. But don't worry, we will address these problems. The game will last for 5 rounds. Each round, you will be dealt several policy cards. Executing policy consumes the government's funds. Once you have spent all the money, the term will be ended and the appearance of the city and its citizens will be changed to visualize the effect of the policies you executed this round.
Yeah, that's it for the demo video. And the first part is about the project. In the common understanding of the people, they always think the sustainable development is about the pollution and the environment. So actually, sustainable development is not just about the environment. It is also about the gender equality and about the jobs, about the medical care, education, culture, etc. So we did a lot of research for the 17 goals, and it's published by United Nations. And United Nations take actions to achieve sustainable development from these 17 aspects. So for example, goal 10 is reduce the inequality, and in our daily life, and equal access to education, health services, job opportunities, and etc. And it can be a great threat to the long-term social economic development of a country. So United Nations just take actions in this specific aspect to achieve the sustainable development. About the demographic, based on the client's needs, our target users will be college students, and we did some personas based on the target users. The second part is about the game. We are making a fun policy making simulation card game that encourage player to discover how policy are interim and enjoy affect the different aspect of society. And we hope we can relate, our player can relate on their discovery and apply them to the real world. And eventually, they can make an open and conversation with others. We are develop our game using Unity, and we want to publish on a WebGL and by HO. And we are still discussing with our clients about the platform we are published on.
Okay, so, oops. Oops. Sorry about that. So the next part is the design development. As you've seen in the demo video, you are the mayor of Shapetopia, so there are 3 phases in our game. The first phase is the draw card phase, and then is the play card, and next the interview. So in the draw card phase, you can draw different policy cards, and in the play cards phase, you can play those cards to change the city. And in the interview phase, the game will interview a random citizen to give you some feedback about this round. So this is our wireframe to elaborate more about each phase. So now you have already drawn your policy cards here, and you can drag and drop it on the city to play it, and it will cost you the corresponding budget, and the index will also change. So now since you've played it, it's collected. So you can click on this collection tab to see all the cards you've played. And you can also click on a specific card to see its detailed information here. And now back to the main interface. Because you think there's nothing else you can do, you can just click to enter the next phase. So now here's the interview phase. A random citizen will tell you briefly about their experience this year based on the cards you've played for this round. And then next, the secretary will continue to summarize this round for you according to the interview and also those index. And then you can click to enter the next round, which you draw card again. So that's our core gameplay.
So as a simulation game, every simulation game will have some indexes to, to tell how things are going. As for our city, we need to find some indexes to define the city's performance, the basic stats of the city, which is a really hard process because remember we have 70 goals to be addressed, which means these indexes should categorize all the goals effectively. And meanwhile, as indicators, the indexes should tell how the players performs, what problems the city is currently facing. Finally, we came up with these 4 indexes, and we meet with our clients. We find it's really effective. These 4 indexes are environment, social stability, life expectancy, and prosperity. Once we settle down the indexes, we can finally designing the policy cards. We want our policy cards to be intertwined with each other. They can be playing as a combo. They can generate some synergies. And so we look into many technology tree systems in other games. And finally, we develop our own policy tree system. As you can see, it's a tree structure. So the parent node, the policy card at the parent node, we act as some prerequisite to unlock the child node policy cards. And the child node policy cards, which usually are some very detailed, very advanced policies.
This part is the user journey map that we created, that we can put ourselves directly into the three personas mindset and see which area we can make improvements on. And we also predicted users' actions and their wants and confusion points at different stages of the game, of before, during, and after. And we also predicted the user's interest curve. So at the beginning, when new cards are dealt and played, and they see how they have effect on the development of the city, the curve is going to go up. And there will also be random incidents happening during the game, and this caused the curves to go down. And eventually, when there are new policies dealt that offset the negative effects, the curve is going to go up again. The next part is art styles. So the overall art style is going to be pretty vibrant and putting the users into a relaxing and bubbly mood when they're playing this game. And also we use some colors on the SDG goals to make the overall style. And on the left here, we have the index panel. And on the right, we have the collection system and then indicator panel that tells the user the number of rounds and coins they have left. And on the bottom here, we have the card panel. And here's a more detailed illustration of our 2D design of the cards. So these are all the different components. We have level, cost, and illustration. And on the right here, we have more illustration of the different policies that we have. And on the bottom, we have the descriptions, functions, and related SDGs. And this part is the 3D environment. So this is going to be serving as a visual feedback when players are playing this game, and the city will change accordingly of different cards that they're playing.
So this is another visual effect that we're going to have in the city when players play policy cards and affect the index systems. Like this texture here is indicate that the citizens have different jobs and where it increase the reliability of the citizens' appearance. And here we have the animation to represent the status of the index, like if the city is doing well, the citizen will be happy and walking. If it's not, it will be sad like sitting on the street. Finally, for our future plan, we're gonna basically focusing on the card designs in the future and how to balance the index effect in the gameplay. And also, we're gonna focusing on creating more 3D assets, creating more animations, and more policy cards, and utilizing the game systems. And we're gonna polish and publish it in the last 4 weeks. And also, we're gonna make a video trailer about this game and to propagate that is one of the CMU's sustainable development activities. And our biggest, the three major matrix will be the gameplay and the documents, such as research and stuff, and also our client's requirement. So after the last presentation, we make a lot of progress and like combining all the ideas into this alternative creative game mechanics. And also we design we finalize our gameplay flowchart, our user experience, and we successfully categorize these 70 goals by these 4 indexes we have. And that's it for our presentation. And here's the summary. And also, special thanks to Dave, who provide these creative ideas to us. Any questions or comments?
No question.
Thank you.
I may have missed it, but the demographics, who's the demographic?
The college students.
College students.
Yeah.
It's just generally college students, or is it specifically for Carnegie Mellon, or?
It's specifically from Carnegie Mellon.
And my other that question is you have 17 goals you have to address in this game, correct?
Yes.
But none of them I saw were, and this may be a little bit more complicated than you need to go, was the politics involved in some of these decision makings, with a city. I mean, you have, that's a very important part that determines what you do, whether the politics are for you or against you. Anyway, it's not quite, have you thought about that, or is that just too complicated to bring the issue of politics into sustainability issues?
Well, even though the player is a mayor, the player is actually kind of a godlike character in this game. So it's like the player is managing the city, but
There's no politics that exists.
yeah,
Okay.
that would be too complicated and maybe too dark.
Yes.
I want to clarify your response to that. I'm the client. You actually have taken in a lot of politics into this, and you've told me that you've had lots of discussions about what's important or not important across the goals. And I used to oversee New York City's Sustainable Development Goals program, so I'm providing insight into the policy and things that they'll have to take into consideration for this. So, what you've told me is that you've talked. You said, I hope you're telling the truth, into lunch and in the evenings about what you think is important in terms of development and what you think should be considered important or not important. And I think we've had really great discussions about it where you've enlightened me on your perspectives, and we've talked about areas where something might go poorly. Like you showed a little bit, someone could make a poor decision that will have a negative impact on the citizenry. I just want to make sure that aspect was reflected because you have put a lot of thought into that.
Yeah, I did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, when you play test this game with your target audience, what are you going to be looking for evidence that it's doing the things you want it to do and your client wants it to do?
Do you understand? Could you elaborate more on this?
So I guess you're making a game that the goal is to get your audience to understand things, to realize certain things. And I'm wondering, when you're playtesting this and you're iterating it, what are you watching for in your playtesters to give you a sense of is it successful or not?
Well, actually, we look forward to do that, but the current iteration, we mainly focusing on whether this game can continue, whether it's functional well or not. So, yeah, that's a really good part we need to address on in the future. But currently, we haven't done that, I believe.
Well, I just wanted to stress that we did the playtest to try to see if the players can understand the 4 indexes, or if we use the proper word to describe the status of the city. Well, I think to answer your question, for now we're just looking forward to see if they can better understand the game and the indexes.
All right, that's time. Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the afternoon session of the Halves presentation. We are Embrace. We will be presenting to you an interactive and immersive experience about culture humility. So before I dive into the topic, I want to introduce our teams, and I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. So Alex, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Alexa Wang, and I'm the UI UX designer, also the assistant producer.
Hi, I'm Amber Griffith. I am the lead artist and also game designer.
Hi, this is Charles, the game designer and the programmer of our project.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey. I'm the lead game designer and one of the programmers.
Hi, I'm Shan. I'm the lead producer of the team.
I am Shicai. I'm the lead programmer of the team.
And we have Mike and Rolf as our faculty advisors. So I'm gonna go into the project. So first of all, we have a client, Ayana Lefford, who is the Associate Dean of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion from Detroit College. So she provided us with the following scenarios. First of all, we will be making parts of the first year orientation session for Detroit College this fall. And the second is, our part is to work on a 15-minute intro into this 90-minute orientation session. And the most important part is our scope, which will be aiming for 300 to 400 participants in an auditorium with a live facilitator.
Yeah, so if you're anything like we are, reading that description, you probably have one big question. What is cultural humility? I like to start by saying what it isn't. Cultural humility isn't trivia, fun facts, and knowing everything about everyone. Cultural humility is a process of self-reflection in which you understand yourself and your own core values and how that impacts the way you see the world around you. It's important because those sort of core values can give you biases towards the experience that you have. So you can gain a much higher level of understanding of other people if you are aware of them. It's not about the individual, it's about the interpersonal. In order to achieve that, we have a list of goals, which we have split into the audience and the facilitator. On the audience side, we want to be able to give them the opportunity to have that self-reflection in a guided way, rather than just teaching them the basic terminology of cultural humility and hoping for the best. In addition, we recognize that the setting of having all 300 to 400 students in one room is a pretty unique setting, so we want to capitalize on that. We want to be able to show the diversity of the group while we have them. Finally, we want to make sure that the students feel comfortable sharing and hearing about other people's experiences. And so we want to promote that level of openness. Now, on the facilitator side, the big thing is understanding that our product is not on its own. Our product is a part of a larger orientation session, so we want to make sure that our game leads into roundtable discussions fairly seamlessly. On the other hand, we also know that not everyone is very tech savvy. Just because we can play it doesn't necessarily mean that a naive user can. So we want to make sure that we take into consideration something that's easy to use and deploy in a live setting, hopefully without much prior tech knowledge. Finally, on that note, we also want to make sure that we have enough of a guide or a manual to using our product that any naive presenter should be able to use the material effectively.
So we have introduced our project settings, and now we will go through what we have done in the first 6 weeks. So after meeting with our client and understanding the needs, we first divided our project goals into several aspects and prioritize them. We decided to focus primarily on meeting the client's requirements, making an effective product, and also playtesting more often. As for the related work, we first did academic research about cultural humility, and then we looked into several similar projects dealing with social topics. These include previous ETC projects and other commercials and talks. Finally, we were also inspired by other social games that utilize anonymity to facilitate player interactions and provide positive impacts. During the quarter walk-around, the major feedback focused on how to deal with the physical requirements, such as handling the 300 students in an auditorium-like space. Also, it can be hard to playtest and rehearse for such a large number of audience, not to mention how to embed the experience into the orientation and making all the audience engaged.
Okay, well, so let me introduce our iteration process. At the beginning, we actually want to make an interactive film with a sharing space. But after discussing with our client, Ayana, we changed our mind and decided to make a multiplayer web-based game. Okay, let's focus on our game design process. We actually came up with 3 different kinds of ideas. The first one is about cultural evolution, and the second one is a Q&A game, and the third one is about cultural wheel. So the third one is our final choice because the first one is out of scope, and the second one, players cannot have a self-reflection. So let's just zoom into our, what is the cultural wheel? So as you can see, each player is represented by a wheel that shows different aspects of their own culture. And making a wheel is actually an exercise in self-reflection about aspects of identity and their importance. So let's see our core gameplay design. We divided our gameplay into 3 different parts. And the first part is related to self-reflection and cultural identity. And the second part is about exploration and some teamwork activities. The third one is about a personalized statistic report for players to get some feedbacks after all this experience. Eventually, we decided to delete the Q&A part because we think it's hard for us to design some questions like this. Okay, this is our prototyping process. At the beginning, we build some paper prototypes, and then we use the paper prototypes and our game design document to build a digital prototype like this. So these 2 pictures are our digital prototypes. Okay, so above all is our iteration process.
Okay, now I'm talking about our current build. Okay, so here first I want to talk about our overall experience of the orientation. Firstly, the facilitator will introduce some of the core concepts of the cultural humility to the audience. And then our students will log into our website by scanning the QR code on the big screen. And then they will be asked a few questions that we've designed according to our pre-survey results. And after they finish the survey, we will generate a cultural wheel that's designed for them. And then the students in the auditorium will be split into smaller groups of about 6 to 10 people. And every group will have a puzzle that's customized by the cultural wheel dynamic of the team members. And they will solve the problem together. And after they solve the problem, they will each have received a closing report aimed to giving them information to help them reflect on the cultural humility process and to get them prepared for the next phase, which is the roundtable groups, where there will be more in-depth discussions on more specific questions. And for our project, we will be mainly focusing on the 3 process in the middle, which will take about 15 to 30 minutes of the whole 90 minutes orientation. And they will mainly conducted by the interaction of the mobile devices of the students to the big screen. Okay, and here is our demo video, which is already online and is open to playtest. So the user will need to input his names first, which will be only visible to him. And then the students will answer a few questions that we mentioned before, like, what's your hobby? What's your favorite food? What's your race? What's your gender? And what do you identify yourself religiously? And after he finished the questions, we will ask them to input some numbers to score the aspects by the importance of the cultural aspects to them. And after they finish the scores, they will receive a cultural wheel. And then they will go into the lobby where they can control the wheel by the virtual joystick on the left, and they can spin the wheel on the right corner to see which aspects do they want to see from others. And they can meet with other people, they can interact with them, which we will be developing. They can send emojis and have some visual effects. And after the wandering process, that's about 2 to 3 minutes, they will go into the problem-solving process. Okay, as you can see in the big screen, all the students in the auditorium will be visible to the students. Okay, now here is our problem solving. There will be 3 spots, and each spot needs to be filled with cultural wheels that has the names and the numbers it required. And after they solve the problem, they will receive a closing report that we will be developing in the next few weeks. Okay, I'll hand it to Alexa to tell more.
Yeah, sure. So let's talk about future plan.
we definitely need to solve some challenges. The first one is runtime capacity. Like, we need to make sure that since more and more players join this online game, is there any delay or not? We have to figure out that. And the second one is the algorithm. So that's divided to 3 parts, the team grouping part, the puzzle generating part, and also the report part. And third, we have to care more about semantics. We have to make sure that our words and sentences are not aggressive to the players, to the students, and make them like comfortable to answer those questions. So based on those 3 challenges, we do need to do a lot of play testing. And for next step, the first one, we need to do more gameplay developing. We already built our culture well, so we'll more focus on the team problem solving and also the report part. And we'll also add some art assets. We will continue iterate the semantics, the words and sentences. And the most important part, we will do weekly play testing. So those pictures are, we did a play testing last Friday, and we also play test with our faculty advisor. Yeah.
All right, so to summarize, we are Embrace, and we will be delivering an interactive and immersive experience about cultural humility. It will focus on 300 to 400 participants in an orientation session with a live facilitator, and it will be a 15-minute intro experience into a 90-minute orientation session, which will be divided into 3 parts, game design. So that's all of our presentation, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask or make any comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you're asking some very personal questions in that survey. What are you doing to protect anonymity?
Yeah, so I think we saw it in the video. The players they enter a nickname whenever it comes to entering, and the importance of that is if someone gets dropped, they can then re-enter using the same nickname. But other than that, no personal information about name or location within the auditorium is given. In addition, on the survey, there's also an option if there are certain topics that you do not want to show. You can either just prefer not to say or answer it as part of the exercise, but then choose a little checkbox to not show it in the larger group setting.
I trust that you folks will play test in a way that will prove your 300 to 400, but what do you see as your biggest challenge in that size of audience for what you're building?
I think first on the technical side, there's first the network issues that we need to make sure that everybody in the same auditorium can have the connection that's stable. And I already contacted Brian about it, and we will have, like on the server side, we will be working with the technical team to work on the server side, and later we will rent some of the CMU servers to make sure that this website is stabilized for the 300 to 400 people.
In addition, another one of the concerns that I know we're still sort of working through is we have this big screen available and we want to be able to use it to show like an overview of what's going on within the room, but how do you balance that sort of visual representation without it turning into chaos? So we are still sort of iterating the idea of, do we want to simplify the models for the big screen, just pick whatever aspect they decide was most important and that's their color on the big screen. Or maybe only show a subset or only move them every so often so it's more still frames and then it updates every 5 seconds. So that is something that we will test. I believe we talked about the idea of automating it to try and replicate as if there were 300 to 400 students.
I appreciate the commitment to playtesting. It sounds like you've done a little bit of playtesting already. What have you learned from that limited playtesting?
There's one thing that I've discovered that is people really get astonished by the problem that how do you score the importance of the different aspects contributing to your cultural will? Like how do you identify most? And I think that's a really valuable question we've gained from the playtesting. And also we've received some playtesting results that there's some disturbing questions that the players gets very anxious about, like sexuality. So that's something we are working now to make them, I think we want them to feel safe when they are asking those questions, answering those questions.
And by disturbing, I do want to clarify, we mean more with like the specific wording and the ordering of the questions so that we can sort of ease into maybe deeper topics that people are not used to asking. So we'll start out with asking what your favorite genre of music is, and then maybe dive into gender and race and religion and other topics that maybe are a little more heated in everyday life.
Do they have the option not to answer?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
They both have the option to choose prefer not to say and still have that show on the big screen. And they also have the option to just to completely skip that when it comes to what would show up on the big screen.
Okay, will it show on the screen the number of people who did not answer? Because I think that would be discussion worthy in and of itself.
We are still in the process of thinking through what we want to include in the final report. So it may be something that comes up where if we notice that certain topics are maybe more disputed, more like people are maybe a little shyer about answering it, maybe name it at the end. But as of right now, I don't think we have anything solid planned.
And these are for freshmen, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you're assuming a huge amount of self-awareness for an age group that generally isn't very self-aware. So.
Well, that's time. Thanks, Dean.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Every chair has one. It's actually work. I did some places up on campus. There's like mics that split between chairs.
Hi everyone, we are AI Auditors, and welcome to the second half of the Halves presentation. So I'm Jacob, the producer, and here's our team. And our faculty instructor is Mike. Yeah. So our client is Ken, who is kindly with us today, and he's from the CMU Human-Computer Interaction Institute. So he's mainly focusing on AI research. So our client needs us to help in the research on AI fairness by developing a game with a purpose, similar to the concept of the ESP game. So here are some examples of harmful biases in an AI image model. For example, the Google image labeling model putting primate label on a black man is obviously offensive. Another example of harmful biases in AI text model would be Google search autocomplete, where it will assume harmful searches on certain cultural groups. Another example would be Google's translate model, where it's stereotyping a male should be doctor and a female should be nurse. So what do these harmful biases have in common? They are only found by the public after the models are released. Hence, what is AI Auditors about? We aim to sieve out these biases in AI model before they are released to the public through an online web-based multiplayer game. So in reality, these AI models are tested by computer scientists who actually designed this algorithm. So by creating a game with a purpose, ideally, we aim to target the general population of diverse age and nationality to help us sieve out this data better. However, due to the time constraint of our project, we decided to focus mainly on young adults aged between 20s and 30s, as we are also part of this group. So our final deliverable will be using an existing AI toxicity model to create a game with a purpose to attract and support users to have fun while playing and collecting usable AI data. So to measure the success in our project, we want to meet our clients' requirements. create interesting gameplay, and enhance the art style to make it look amazing. Next, I'll pass the time to Tianyi, who will share more about the related works.
Thank you. So we did lots of research on experience and games with the purpose to make AIs work better, and including one past ECC project. And the most relevant example that we found is this Dynabench. It is a tool to help AIs better identify hate speech. And I will show an example of how it works. So here, I decided that my goal is to insert something hateful to fool the AI model. And then I insert the statement, I love killing people, which I, of course, think is hateful, but the AI thinks it's not. Then in that case, I successfully fool the AI model and find something wrong about it. But all those experiences that we found have one thing in common, which is they're not super fun from a gamer's perspective. So the challenge for us is that how can we gamify this kind of experience but still be able to generate more data? And we started our ideation with 3 ideas. One is to let the players fight monsters by finding bias. And second is to let players find AI among us by voting and looking at different judgments. And the third one would be an AI escape room. And the feedbacks we got from the faculty in Quarter is that there are actually 2 ways to do this. One is to make the game be able to generate more data, and the other is to make the game more interesting so we can get more players involving more time and spending on this game to generate more data. So we really should try to balance between the amount of data generated per each game and the fun level of the game. And in general, faculty prefer the second idea, which is AI among us. Then I'll pass to Eliza.
So we come up with the idea of AI Among Us. It is a social deduction game that each round, the players, including one AI, have to submit a sentence and make a judgment of whether this sentence is positive or negative. And then by telling who is making the mistake or making the wrong judgment, the players should be able to make a deduction of who is the AI. And we have the 2D layout designed for this. And we have 3 series of character design. This is a more humanized version, and a more cartoonistic, stylized version, and also a more funny and futuristic look. And then the quad, we got the client's feedback. While they think it's pretty important to do a playable game, it is also important to prioritize the need to differentiate between what is a harmful bias and also what is an AI mistake. Like, for example, if an AI says a mashed potato is an ice cream, that will probably just an AI mistake, but not an AI bias towards a certain group of people. So as a solution, we jump back to a previous level. We play some card games. This is the picture showing us playing the Dixit and Apples to Apples. We play this game because this is such a game that involves a lot of people doing it, and also give us a more room and time talking about what is a bias and what is a mistake and how to differentiate them. So, and then we come up to the next level with a more polished and finalized idea, which I'll pass it to Jisub to talk more about it.
So the game has 2 parts. First, card collection, and second, card level up. Before joining a multiplayer game, a player should build a card deck, and they need to find harmful biases, and it will be their cards. A player can submit their sentence that the AI might miss during the training, and the player will get the result, which is the AI's assertion. In this case, the AI says it's non-toxic, and the result is harmfully biased, so they can make it to a card. The second part of the game is card level up. After collecting enough cards, a user can join the multiplayer game, and in the game, they can use their cards they collected from the part 1. Every round, each player puts on 1 card on the table, and after every player puts card on the table, they can start to vote. They should vote on the most harmfully biased card. And a player gets points their card gets, and a player who gets 30 points first wins the game. And we have extra features that make to make the game more elaborate. The first feature is a veteran card. When a card gets to reach level 5, they are gonna retire. A card will get the special decoration after the retirement. And the second feature is a legend card. If the AI research team thinks the data is invaluable, they can show their respect by designating it as a legend card. And all cards are unique, so it will encourage players to make cards first. And we have more ideas about the gaming cards, such as the double back cards. It will make the game more interesting. Now I'll hand it off to Hannah.
Hi. So this is an example of a proof of concept that we played as a team, as well as an instructional video that explains the flow of the game.
Here is our playable paper prototype of our game. Firstly, we gathered comments with a toxic level between 0.55 to 0.65 from the AI toxic model and put them on each card. We started with dealing 7 cards to each player. Each round, player will receive one category, like culture in this round. Players then place one of their cards which is related to culture face down on the table. After all players are done, cards on the table will be shuffled and turned over. Every player votes for the most harmfully biased card except for their own. So now the first card gets 3 votes and the fourth one gets 2 votes. So the player who plays them will get 3 points and 2 points. We then collect the 2 cards and mark them as useful data. In the next round, the category is identity. Players will choose a new card from the deck and choose one of their cards which is related to identity. The fourth and the fifth one get the most votes. Their owners will win the same number of points and the 2 cards will be collected. In the next round, the category is general, which means players can choose any type of card. The third and fifth card get the most votes, and their owners win the same vote points. After several rounds, we can check every player's score to see who wins the game, and we also gather the most harmfully biased card to keep track of the AI's biases in our dataset for further research.
So we had our first internal and external play tests with this paper prototype using real data from the toxicity model. Then we were able to document the cases of AI bias and that we identified it in the play test. As a result, we were able to easily identify biased data while playing. We identified 2 big things we need to improve. First, we need to make the game more interesting, or second, we need to make it more meaningful to the players. We also mapped this experience from tabletop to desktop with a series of wireframes. For example, this is the screen where the players are guided to pick a statement. And this is the auditing screen where players see the results of the voting and get points. Our group decided to make an internet game using Unity WebGL. In order to help us create the multiplayer functionality requested by the clients, we will be using Photon to help us create places where the players can interact. As is common for games with a purpose, we will need to record user inputs and data. After some research, we decided on Firebase to store this data. We managed to link our existing Unity game to an external toxicity AI model from Hugging Face to build the game. This is an example of the voting system we created using Photon. As you can see, once one person votes, the symbol appears by their name on every player's screen. We will be using this mechanic when developing the multiplayer game part of our project. And now I will hand it over to Lynn to talk about art.
Yeah, so I'll talk about our art progress. So we have mentioned that we find a lot of inspiration from playing the party game like Dixit and Apples to Apples. So it is pretty clear that we are going to make a multiplayer online turn-based card game with a lot of toxic sentences. So for the art side, we are considering all these elements and try to find a way to make the game more immersive. We looked through a lot of card references, and here is our card design. So there are several points we are planning to achieve. So firstly, text is our core component, so it has to be easy for the players to read through
and have a clear display of the AI model's toxic result, like what you see, the high toxicity card and the low toxicity card. So in our design, we use like the dark background color to make players to be more focused and immersed. The illustration on the card back with the two figures conveys our idea that the human and AI can work together to improve. So we want to make the design more simple and intuitive to minimize the distraction of the visual elements. And we also designed different cards like special double cards, veteran card, and the legend card to motivate players' interest in collecting the cards. And here is our interface design. So since we are based on a toxic model, we believe that the online environment is more likely to breed the toxic remarks. So our interface is more picturing a kind of future online platform to make players feel closer to their life experience and be more immersed. So like you see, this is the interface of a playing drew a card to the table. And this is the interface of players voting each other's card. So now I'll pass to Shirley to talk about the background story.
Thank you. And for the player, imagine that you are in year 2122, and your identity is AI auditor as an entry level. And who you are working with? You are working for the AI and Human Intelligence Academy. So the daily job is about to supervise AI's judgment to make sure there's no harmful biases in it, and they can be safe to release in the public. And you will have an AI assistant in the beginning to guide you through the whole workflow. And here's the AI assistant. There are 3 designs we have right now, and we're still designing on which design to pick. And we choose this style is because that we want to make the player feel welcome in the beginning, because the assistant won't be appear in the actual gameplay later. And here's our production timeline. So after quarters, we spend lots of time doing playtesting through paper prototype and collecting experiences and feedbacks from our classmates. And for this week, we are on track to make a WebGL playable prototype. And so our plan for second half will still be playtesting and making prototype and enhance and improve our whole experience based on feedbacks. And the summary is, our goal is to make fun games that like gamers can play, but also collecting useful data for the researchers to research biases in AI. And that's it. Any questions? Thank you.
So it can be really distressing to actually read a whole bunch of toxic statements. I'm wondering how you're setting it up for players, or if you're telling people in advance what this is going to be about. Like, how do you contextualize it? And then if they do play it, do you have something you're doing afterwards to help people kind of process this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's also we found in our first several playtests that players may feel stressed after reading through all those statements. So a direction that we identified from the playtest is that it would be helpful if we can make these things become really meaningful to the player. So adding more values to the result and make them realize about that this is something important and they are doing something real that's really helpful to the others.
Yeah, I have one question on the meaningfulness side. I'm curious about, I'm not sure what the right framing might be. I'm curious about the choice to frame this as happening hundreds of years in the future, because I think part of the motivation here is these models are being used for consequential applications and making lots of mistakes, harming people today. So it seems like connecting to the meaningfulness, it might be better to kind of maybe root it in the present and make it clear that this is a real problem that's happening today. Make clear also kind of who might benefit from the efforts of the players.
Okay, thank you. We'll definitely add on more to the story side.
So I don't know, I'm trying to think of how to frame this question.
And, thank you. So the examples you showed up there were all based on race or some sexuality. A couple questions there. And I would imagine you're going to, that race is not just going to be African Americans, it's going to include, you know, a wide range of different races, Asian, Indian, what have you. Is that a correct assumption?
So the benefit of the generalizing this to the entire world, general auditing, is the fact that it will find biases based on people's experience. So if there's someone who's experienced that and they're playing this game, the hope is that they'll be able to find it. So we're hoping that it will be varied and we'll get varied and general results throughout kind of every type of bias potential. We just use those examples because they are common and ones that a lot of people can unfortunately relate to.
Thank you.
Time for one more.
So as about the card design, you mentioned that the sentences might be hard to read, right? So I'm curious about, have you considered drawing illustrations, different paintings specific to each sentence to help the players memorize the sentence more easily?
Yeah, thanks for the great question. Yeah, I think it's under consideration, but the difficult part about that is that each person will have various sentences. Yeah, but we will generalize a few designs for like different score from the model and eventually publish it to the player so that they can feel like more unique. Yeah, thanks.
All right, thanks team, good job.
Thank you.
Congrats to all the teams who went today. Thanks so much. Thanks for the clients for showing up. Faculty. Yeah. Right now. Wait, John, we're running the portal.
Yeah, just all of
them. Back to the room.
Okay.